Oi, what's up? It's your boy Rafik, and this is my setup. I'm gonna show you how I use this little baby for my entry in this year's Red Bull Freestyle competition. Alright, one disclaimer, if you're not a DJ or a nerd or anything like that, this is just gonna be geeky as fuck. Alright, so in front of me I have two Technics MK2 turntables, which are just the ones that I like. Those are connected to a Native Instruments Z2 mixer that also has some MIDI capabilities and whatnot. Over here we have the Machine MK2 controller. I'm not getting any dough for this, let me be really clear about that. Anyways, this is the controller that I like to use because it's just a friggin' powerhouse. And it also comes in two modes. Number one, which is MIDI mode, that's gonna trigger cue points and a bunch of other stuff that I'm gonna show you within Traktor. Like that, and then you can also switch it into the default machine mode, which just turns into a sampler that you can play live. Like that. So you could use anything, but I like these two modes, the color coding, and that it has a bunch of buttons that you can map to whatever shit you want to map it to, really. Alright, so let's take a look at this bad boy. It comes with 8 pages, A all the way through to H. Basically, the pages are color-coded on the pads, so I know what I'm doing at any given time. I got cue points on bank A, 8 cue points on the left side, and 8 cue points on the right side. Additionally, I can also trigger the first 4 cue points on the Z2. So this is exactly the same. The difference is I only like to use 4 cue points on the mixer because you're so close, you can have the same hand scratching. Wow, that was just a great example, but you get the idea. If you want to access more than 4 cue points on this side, you have to press this little B button to switch the page. It's really easy to just accidentally hit those buttons when you're doing backspins and stuff. So I disabled those 2 buttons. And the flux button is also disabled because I just hit that all the time by accident. Anyways, bank E. That's the Batman. It's a macro basically, and all these 16 pads will trigger the first cue point of the right deck. But the pads on this bank will also do 2 other things. Number one, each of these pads is going to turn on the key lock for the right deck. But the bad boy trick is that each pad will adjust the key setting to a different value, and those are mapped out in semitones. I'll show you. So now I can play this stab, which is just 1 cue point, but it's going to adjust the tone and semitones. 7 semitones up and a bunch more downwards. So that's cool for some new tone play type shit, because before we needed different cue points for all these. Now we can just use 1. I'm not the only one who's doing this. For example, 69 Beats from Poland. Talented kid uses a very similar mapping with a different controller. Plays it just like a keyboard. I had a chat with him the other day and he sent me this link where someone explained just how you do this in case I didn't do the best job at explaining this. So yeah, shout out 69 Beats. Okay, anyways, I also built an extra gimmick into this little setup right here because I use this stab in conjunction with a snare. And the problem is that if I change the key lock, it's also going to transpose the snare. And I don't like that, so I made a little modifier which I mapped to the microphone button up here. So if that's illuminated, the second cue point is going to switch off the key lock again. And that's cool because then the snare will always be constant. And especially with the low ones, that's important because it will sound really shit. So that is the trick with my pitch cue mapping. I hope I did a decent job at explaining this. The final stuff that I want to show you as far as my machine mapping is concerned is these buttons up here, and those will be settings that I might have to access really quick. I just want to tell you guys that within Thractor, you can save snapshots for effects. If you go up to that little arrow, then you can save a snapshot. So that means every time you load up that effect, it will jump to specific settings that you might like. So I have 3 of these effects. Number 1 is a delay with nice settings that are not too harsh. Cool. And then if I press down the same modifier and press the second button on the right display, it's going to jump to a longer type of reverb. Kind of like that plate sound if you want. And then finally I have the third button, which is going to change to a small kind of room type thing. That's the effects and how I manage to keep those under control. The next one that's really important are these 2. There's a setting within Thractor that's called Load Next. All it's going to do is it's going to jump to the next song and put that on whatever deck you want. So this button is for left deck, this button is for right deck. So I'll have one track playing, and then I just change the track by pressing the right side now. There you go. And then another track. Okay, so finally I have this little guy up here. It says int-r. It's gonna stop the record and put it on internal as a macro. Because if you have stuff on internal and if you press a cue point, it's similar to note on the MPC, meaning that for how long you have the button pressed down, it's going to be playing that cue point. So, if this is playing on relative mode, this is how I get into the Samir's theme thing and manage to play it. I hope I could help some of you guys with your nerdy business. Like or even share the video. Go to the like button, click that little arrow and set your notifications. My name is Rafik. I'll see you guys soon.